Ms Chanelle here. Just want to make sure everyone is settled in. All right. And I'm still kind of preparing because I'm on here later, a bit later than I had planned. All right. Just a tad bit later. Just a tad later than I had planned. I'm checking something. That's how much late I am. Still checking stuff. All right. So what I'm here to do is to actually take a look at the papers, the paper 2 for CSEC English A. I got it. I didn't really dive into it because I wanted to dive into it live. I do know that a notice came. Oh my goodness, I was happy. A notice came, so I want to see how they structured a notice because I've always been mindful of the fact, and I assume CXE as well, they're mindful of the fact that the notices are pretty short for that question. You don't have to write much for a notice, right? So I'm really excited to see how they structure the notice question. And you may be like, oh, Miss Excited. I'm excited. I normally say excited because I look at how papers are structured very analytically so that I can help my students. All right, that's how I'm able to help my students. I look at the papers and I give them advice based on the trends. And again, it just sounded like a better paper, right? Which the last 4 to 5 years, this new syllabus, it's been a better paper. I know some of you were like, miss, not really. I'll just say this. If you've not had the practice and the training like I would normally give my students, or that you come here and you get as freemium content, you would be lost in the paper. Because I have had students who wrote the exam, I get them as repeat candidates, and they're like, Miss, I didn't know I had to do this for the exam. So, and that's where they lost a lot. That's where they failed. All right. So don't worry about that. Um, but I heard there's a notice, and I already heard about the picture. If you've never heard me go off on CXC's pictures that they bring for the narrative, I think I have to do a whole separate video on that, explaining why I hate these pictures. But I already saw a meme from one of my students who's in university laughing at the picture. Yeah, and I don't think that's the exact picture I saw on social media. The one I saw, it looks like a similar picture, but honestly. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna look at summary. Okay, so we've got the same new instructions with 5 main points, and that your summary must include a minimum of 7 points in order to get full marks. Yeah, right? So we've got that. This is on teenage stress. So I normally look at the title first, and what's this? Where's this from? Adapted from Sarah Villanueva, Teenage Stress, Psychology Today. www.psychologytoday.com. I think Psychology Today is either a magazine, but it's psychology. So this means this should have some sort of medical work, and the date is 2015. Why am I looking at the date? Because you should look at the date. All right, so okay, so adolescence is a tricky developmental period. It's awkward stage. What's new in the environment we live in? Fast paced. Teenagers are expected to know what to do. So the point is they already gave us teenage stress. So this article is about teenage stress. So we're supposed to look for main points revolving around teenage stress. Success tracks in elementary school. So it's like school is stress. Get to university, so academic pressure or the field of academics is stressful. Social, we have peer pressure via social media. That's stressful. Excuse me. Adolescence itself is stressful because of the physical, cognitive, and social changes. That's why adolescence is stressful. On the whole, social media just makes it even worse because you're on stage. It's an awkward stage. All right, so this is actually in. Be careful of the adjectives I'm going to use. This is actually a very decent summary. Again, we're mindful that CXE tends to build papers for candidates who are teenagers. Majority of candidates are school candidates. They really don't care about private candidates. I mean, to a certain degree, they don't seem to care about private candidates. So in terms of what most school candidates have to deal with in terms of our topic, this is about teenage stress. You all should be mashing this up, which means it's kind of tricky too because they expect you to mash it up as teenagers. When I say mash it up, I mean do really well at it, right? So I think this is pretty good. This is a lot better than some of the ones that came for like 2018. Now, one of my students in preparation for exams, he did, oh gosh, he did a 2018 paper and he did really poorly in it versus like the 2023. And I told him, I'm like, you really disliked the earlier paper? He was like, yeah, I didn't like it at all. That's because how they asked the questions, the topics they brought, it was just a lot more ridiculous, all right? So I'm gonna look at this notice, which I'm so excited. There's it's a lot of information. So it's a notice. The youth group in your community are planning. Should be is planning. The youth group is planning. What kind of grammar is this? The youth group is planning. Anyway, the youth group in your community is planning a fundraising activity. As public relations officer for the youth group, use the following information to write the notice, which will be posted in the community. Okay, now here's the thing. I haven't read it as yet, but do you see all those points? That's a lot of stuff to put in this notice. Now, notices again tend to be very brief. You're normally going to have the name of the organization, center aligned, the word notice, all caps, center aligned. I think we put the date. Yes, did I just say think? Yes, I did say that. I'm so sorry. You normally put the date and then you begin your notice, and it can be paragraphed. This has a lot of information, so you would more than likely paragraph your notice. And then of course it has to be signed off by public relations officer of whatever the name of your community's youth group is. So at the top should have the name of your community group. So let's say it's the Success Village Community Youth Group, notice, what the notice is about, and then date. Right, so what do we have? Activity will assist a fire victim, event held on the date, the time, the venue, and no admission fee, fun activities, local food, popular DJ. So this is pretty good. I think I would have organized this by giving the purpose of the event in the first paragraph and the basic date, time, location, and then my next paragraph I'd give all the other details, which would be the fee, no fee, fun activities, local food, DJ. And to be honest, it's kind of organized like that already. So this should have been good. This should have been really, really short. It still would have been really short compared to like a report. So imagine you get 30 marks on this. Oh, I'm gonna have fun marking this in the future. All right, so that was notice. Okay, I've zoomed in too much on this. Right. So I'm gonna go to this infamous picture, this already infamous picture. I think this is the second worst picture after Man in the Hole. It's actually kind of, it's nearly as bad as Man in the Hole. If you don't know Man in the Hole, oh my gosh. Now what makes this worse? I have to mention it. I can barely see the phone in the grass, and it's so random. Now, if you were able to get a story from this, you're pretty awesome. One of my candidates, he's a mature candidate. He actually does really well with these pictures. He's taken some pictures that I'm like, what would you get out of it? And he's gotten, listen, on point imagery, on point usage of these pictures. He did this. I heard his story. It's pretty good, because what I always say, I think he did take what I told him. I told him, when you get your prompt, whether if it's the text prompt or the pictorial prompt, you can do whatever you want with it. You just gotta work it. So he actually worked this in with a kidnapping drama, and really boiled it down a lot because I have not gotten his permission to share his story idea, right? So he actually worked it in a way that sounded really, really interesting from this random image. But what could you have done with this? Somebody lost their phone. Um, Somebody found a phone, a very expensive phone, and wanted to keep it. He kind of used that idea a little bit. Um, it's so boring to me. I'm sorry. To me it's very boring because I like to go on Pinterest and look for pictures for my students. I don't want to just give you a random phone in the grass, but I'll make a whole other video about that. Right, and then the text prompt is he was just about to give up when the unthinkable happened. Okay, that's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's really not bad. The unthinkable could be anything, so you still have a lot of leeway in creating your story. Is the unthinkable excuse is the unthinkable a death? Is the unthinkable failed grades? Is the unthinkable a business plan that sunk, or a business deal that fell through, right? Are any of those things the unthinkable? So yes, this is not bad. And again, we have this change in instructions where it's not include the lines, but it's write a story based on the sentence below. um I'm going to assume that it means literally you don't have to include the lines, but it must give this vibe of someone was about to give up when the unthinkable happened. But I'm not sure if CXE still kind of wants to see the lines, because I'm wondering. Uh, I'll, I'll try to discuss that in another video as well. But as far as I see, it's a pretty decent text prompt. You could tell your main character is more than likely male, and as is at some point of dispute over this issue, right? So you've got a nice sentence to work with conflict anyway. So this is pretty decent. All right, a lot of this is really a lot of practice. If you are from the future and you're just listening to this because you want to get a review of or an idea of what this paper is like, this paper is pretty good, guys. All you got to do is write. And I know students from this year, you guys are preparing for maths. I know you guys are honing it in for maths. That's okay. I understand. You've got to put your priorities where they need to be. Ooh, look at this argumentative question. Okay. So again, let me say this. Section the argumentative says at the bottom, write an argumentative essay giving your views on this statement. It's not write a persuasive essay. I am seeing people teaching persuasive essay writing. It's not that you're not supposed to do persuasive essay writing. It's just not what's required for this exam. You're supposed to be able to identify persuasive, and I'm just gonna probably do a video on the aims and goals of the exam. Yes, I've read the aims and goals in the syllabus, and that will kind of make why they're saying do this, right? So argumentatives are really good for everyone, especially if you're going to do, regardless of your discipline, you're going to do into business, you're going into sciences, you're going into like literary field, argumentative essays, right? Most disciplines will require argumentative writing at an academic level. All right. But looking at the question, physical education and sports should be compulsory for all students. I don't know what you all felt about this. That's actually not a bad question. The reason I say that is because I've seen a question like this come before, but it'll be vague. When I say vague, very broad in terms of should certain subjects not be compulsory for school. So then when it's that vague, you have to find something more specific to talk about. You have to bring it down to all art subjects should be permitted in school. I think I focus on art in that one because most people tend to see science subjects, maybe even business subjects, as important, but then art subjects you can't get a job with, right? So this is really nice because they give you a particular field, a particular subject area, a particular discipline to discuss, right? Very much like the one where they said, should foreign languages be compulsory? Very similar to that. So should sports physical education be compulsory for all students. Now you can still take this and break it down to discussing it at primary level, discussing it at secondary level. Because you're writing this as a secondary level exam, it's always great to take it at the secondary level. Should it be compulsory? Yes, maybe, because it's going to help with your overall physical development, right? I think there are some places where I think there are still places where doing physical education, even in university, is mandatory, right? Um, but you have your pros and your cons, and you're pretty good to go. I think overall, now, as I said at the beginning, if you have not had the ability to practice, this paper might frustrate you. If you don't know what argumentative is, if you've never written short story, if you still have problems with writing a summary, you didn't get feedback, it might have frustrated you. But overall, honestly, that was a very decent paper. The trend I've seen with CXE in terms of CSEC English A is trying to bring a paper that gives you smarter questions, right? I would say even the notice was done in a way which was much smarter, and I am glad to see notice coming back. That means I can freely go ahead and prepare sample notice questions for those of you who are writing in 2025. Yes, I'm working on sample questions. And I actually have a textbook for students for students who join my classes in June. So we're starting in June for our 2025 prep, right? So this was pretty good. It was an awesome paper, right? I don't have a really nice PDF copy yet, but if I can figure out how to turn this into a PDF, because it's just pics, I will link it here so that you can get a copy of this as well. All right, as always, this is sent to you with love and in success. Take care. Bye bye.